Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Great day for the Atlanta Braves, and it didn't seem like it. It seemed like a day where I was about to crash out. It was the prototypical Atlanta Braves in 2025 and even go back to 2024 game. Couldn't score, BS runs on blue pits where it was a bad play by Ronald Acuña Jr., but he made up for it later. And I think that was what was so amazing. We were right on the cusp of just wasting a bases-loaded opportunity in the eighth inning after wasting opportunity after opportunity in this game with our best players up that just could not come through. Matt Olson strikes out. Austin Riley pop out. We don't even get a run. Azuna's down to 2 strikes. We're screwed. I mean, we all collectively thought we'd seen this thing. And Azuna saves us. Line drive, down the left field line, clears the bases, ties the game. And even more than that, Ronald Acuña makes up for that with an amazing defensive play. He was unbelievable again. 3 walks and a hit last night. Great defensive play that saves the game. Juan Soto looking goofy out there, reminiscent of Bryce Harper in the NLDS from a couple of years ago. And then to cherry it on top, Raisel Iglesias comes in the 10th and looks like the Raisel Iglesias we've come and know. I mean, how many times over the last 3 years has he come in the 10th inning and looked like that and won us an extra inning game? We have been great in extra innings games because of him a lot of times. That's the Raisel Iglesias we got last night, and then we win it in the 10th with an Austin Riley walk-off. Just completely changed the vibes of what could have been a terrible night, and it's just one game. But, Alex, if there was ever a game that could build some momentum, it feels like last night, with all those things included, seems like it could be one of those games.
Yeah, this is like, I don't know, the 7th or 8th time. It was earlier in the season, it was the Wiley Ballard game, and then there was the come from behind in the 8th inning against the I'm blanking on whoever it was, and we thought that was the turning point. And then Acuña returns, Strider returns, and so I'm not going to get my hopes up. But if things had gone wrong last night, it was the same conversation, though, that we were having. Ronald Acuña Jr. saved Dylan Lee from absolute, where we're looking at ourselves and going, we once again don't have a bullpen piece because, Juan Soto got that first single and Pete Alonso didn't wait long before he saw something he loved. And he nearly put that game, one run felt like a chasm that we could not cross with our offense. And Pete Alonso launched that ball. And if it wasn't for just an absolute, Ronald Acuña Jr., maybe not so great going forward as a defender, but the guy going backwards is like, that when we all talk about, one of those elite defenders, he's still got one of the best arms in baseball, but that area of his defense is still unbelievable. And then you can even go further with the bases loaded, nearly, pissing our pants. If it wasn't for Ozuna, we would be having that same conversation where our biggest guys in the biggest moments, and Matt Olson has been much better. He had the only RBI up into that point, but really Austin Riley 0 for 3 before his walk-off sac fly. There were so many moments, and not Raisel Iglesias wouldn't have been involved in those conversations, thankfully, but still, the same conversations we were always having all of a sudden flipped. And it feels like this could have happened at every single point in the season where we are so close, but everything has gone wrong and everything went right for us last night. So I do kind of want, and maybe it's just I want it to be true, so I'm going to say that it's true, that confirmation bias of like, this did feel like it could be a turning point.
It's one game. And the Mets are going to strap it up, kind of laughing at the Braves, like, hey, we still got a 12-game lead, and we still got a chance to further the gap.
Well, they're 4-game losing streak. I mean, and a lot of those guys are on that same team that we chased down.
I think because of the way it happened and it being the first game of this big stretch to give them a little bit of confidence, and I don't want to say breathing room because they still need to win a lot of these games, but things would have felt a lot differently going into this game too, from just sigh of relief. Because right now, as we said, you ain't going to, even over these 2 weeks, even if they go 14-0, they ain't going to make up the entire deficit. I mean, they can come close if they went 14-0, but they're probably not going to go 14-0, no matter how well they do. But you don't want to lose it here. And it felt like another gut punch like that to start off this big road trip, and you're going into game 2, and you're like, you're just so tight like this team has been. And it would have been flat in that clubhouse. There's no doubt about it. The vibes would have been low. This completely changes that and maybe changes the outlook of this entire 2-week stretch. We still have problems offensively. We still have problems in the bullpen. This is not the Braves team, and hopefully it's not the Braves team that's there at the end of the season. We'll talk about that later. But those things aren't going to disappear overnight. But this 2-week stretch is so critical that they could have lost the entire season here, that losing the way that they could have last night would have been a huge gut punch that could have spiraled into one of those losing streaks that we've seen this season. So that's why I say this could be the game that kind of turns it around. Maybe now we go 11-6 over these next 17 games into the All-Star break when we could have gone 8-11, whatever it is, something like that. That's why I think this one just feels a little different, because it could have been so bad.
That's like cliche saying, like seeing one go through the basket, where like we finally had we're the Mets in this situation, or have been for the the most part of the 2025 season, is maybe we're up 4-1. Francisco Alvarez, Francisco Alvarez does some dumb stuff. Juan Soto, bad base running. Luke Williams, how about that base running by Luke Williams in the ninth inning?
It's more of Alvarez.
Yes, behind him. But even still, I mean, that to have that quick, it was a great reaction, and it just felt like it was the exact opposite, where the 50-50 balls are not falling our way, and you just see one go through the basket, and then the floodgates open. I think that's kind of the feeling around this game for the Atlanta Braves. And again, it might just be that we're clinging on to any 1% hope that it is that moment.
Well, you got to, and then you look ahead and you have Chris Sale on the bump tonight, and it's against Paul Blackburn. And eventually the Atlanta Braves have to start making these crappy pitchers pay and like really put up some numbers. Like, I want a stress-free, like Chris Sale goes out there and does his thing, because that's what we've come to expect every time, much like Spencer Schwellenbach did much of yesterday. But also this offense shows up and it's like, hey, you know what? It's the 6th inning. We got a 7-run lead. Like, okay.
Hey, you don't have to pitch 7 innings of no run ball.
Yeah,
we got
like, like we came up to it. I mean, Paul Blackburn is a bona fide scrub. The guy sucks. And we've been making guys like this look like Cy Young award winners every time they go. Like, eventually you got to start making these crappy pitchers pay and getting some easy wins, because every game can't be like this. It feels like maybe they've done that. Not yesterday necessarily, even though they did come back. But like, they had
the biggest guys that you wanted to see it from did. Ozuna's been really, really slumping. And that was a, big hit for him. More than that, Austin Riley. And honestly, if these balls were 2023 or 2024, that's a walk-off grand slam. How
about them tracking the ball to get the catch? Like,
I love that. I thought it was hilarious.
Like,
people are like, oh, he's stat pads. Like, why wouldn't he?
You just robbed Austin Riley of just like a little bit. It was a hit. I mean, still sack fly, still won the game. No one cares.
Right.
Don't know ball guys will be like, oh, it wasn't a hit. It's like, that thing was smoked.
I mean, and literally a season ago, that's a walk-off grand slam. I mean, it was on, it is what it is. But I think Austin Riley, seeing one go through the hoop in a moment like that, I hope to Lord he experiences one of those, stretches where he just goes absolutely nuclear.
It just feels like it's inevitable with Riley. It does come at some point, because how many times have we been here at a season talking about Austin Riley and being like, oh, he's kind of struggling, he's kind of scuffling. But like when he goes nuclear, it's the same way with Matt Olson. They go absolutely nuclear. And he's done it every year. That's the one thing. Even last year, his end of season numbers are bad. He was amid one of those absolutely nuclear stretches before he gets struck on the wrist. If that doesn't happen, I think he ends up with similar numbers that we saw. So I think it's going to happen from Austin Riley. I don't want to say he's the last person I'm worried about, but he's up there on the list because he's just been so consistent year after year. I got a couple more Braves things. Alex Anthopoulos said some big things about the trade deadline. We'll do that in a little bit. But I want to talk about this lineup, specifically where Ronald Acuña is coming up after the break. So I tweeted this out yesterday, and obviously this was when the Braves only had one run and it looked like they were heading to the loss. But Ronald Acuña in the leadoff spot, that's been his spot. And I understand he's comfortable there. I love him there. I do not necessarily want to move him there. But with the way this lineup is constructed right now, or Snicker is constructing it, you have Harris 8, Allen 9. Neither of them are getting on base for Ronald Acuña. So he's up there basically hitting with the bases empty and usually an out or two in front of him. And then guess who's behind him? Eli White or Alex Verdugo. So what happens every single at bat? 4 balls. And it's nice getting him to first base. But when the guy behind you is hitting 650 OPS, it's just the worst possible place for him to be in the lineup. Like, they cannot have Eli White and Alex Verdugo. Move Austin Riley up there. Move Marcell Ozuna up there. Move Matt Olson. I don't care who the hell you move up there, but stop putting Ronald, because at least have the chance that when they just look up at Ronald and say, the unintentional 4-pitch walk, with you've seen time and time again with this constructed lineup, that maybe Matt Olson can run into one and make it a 2-run homer, or Austin Riley, or Sean Murphy. I don't give a crap who the hell it is, but you cannot have Eli White protecting him when nobody else can get on in front of him. He's literally on an island batting by himself pretty much every time he comes to the plate. It's the worst possible spot for him to be in. And frankly, the fact that the Snit thing, when he does dumb stuff, I'm going to call it out. That's stupid. Like, you cannot have him being unprotected and having two guys that can't get on base in front of him. He's on an island hitting with nobody on base and no protection every single time he walks up there.
Now, it's just hard because half the lineup sucks. I mean, half the lineup sucks. I mean, and you don't want to make it too top heavy, but to a certain degree, it's kind of like if you want to maximize your chances, quality over quantity type of a thing when it comes to, trying to score runs. So it's, rock in a hard place because everything you said is true. But then if you start, Acuña, Riley, Olson, Ozuna, whatever catcher, Ozzy, the bottom half of that lineup, automatic outs. Every single other inning, automatic out. I
just don't care.
And that's what I'm saying is like you have to kind of like pick your poison where you're spreading out your hitters, you're more consistent hitters, you're more productive hitters, but you're also lessening the chances of when those hitters come up that it's an opportunity to even, get more than one RBI, because one is always possible because of a home run or something like that. But I see what you're saying. It's just rock in a hard place. It'd be a lot easier if these bums, Michael Harris, Ozzy Albies, both catchers right now, up until last night, Ozuna, decided they knew how to hit. And while we can all, boo-hoo about the shortstop and left field, why are you getting mad at, a guy, a C student for getting a C? That's the expectation. They suck. The expectation for the other guys is like, hey, you're an all-star caliber player. Step up, get out of this slump. That's what, the biggest problem. How about half the lineup just isn't a tomato can? To
me, this is my thing. Matt Olson and Ronald Acuña Jr. at this specific moment, and maybe it's Ronald Acuña and Austin Riley at some point. You need to be trying your hardest with the way that you're not being able to score runs to get those two guys up in as many scoring position opportunities as possible. Whatever lineup construction, I don't care. You know who gets on base? And we laughed about it. If you want Ozuna leading off and then having Acuña and Olson right behind him, it might not be the craziest thing. The guy's the best contact hitter. It's not like Acuña's stealing bases. Like, it's not the craziest thing in the world to put someone up there. And yeah, the back of your lineup's going to suck. Who cares? Who cares?
Sucks anyways.
Because you need Ronald Acuña Jr. up there, and right now Matt Olson with as many RBI opportunities as possible, because nobody else is coming through.
No.
And it's specifically Ronald Acuña. That's the one guy that you're like, oh, he's out to bat. Oh, there's runners on. Oh, we're gonna get a run here.
Both times, it was the Mets, and then we had another extra innings game semi recently where Acuña was coming up for that ghost runner. First at bat in the 10th inning, and both times I've been like, okay, save us, Acuña. And then immediately I'm like, we'll see him jogging down to first base. I'm like, oh yeah, he's not even going to get a chance.
Alex Verdugo is sitting up there behind.
That's my old boy.
And he pops up on the first.
Oh yeah, Verdugo is it? Oh, Eli White.
You cannot have Ronald Acuña being protected by one of those bums. Like, let them go get outs at the end of the lineup. If you want to keep Acuña in the leadoff spot, I'm fine. But you got to move Matt Olson up and have him protected, because at the very least, you have the threat. First of all, they'll pitch to Acuña in those situations because Olson can hit a 2-run homer. And a 1-run homer is not nearly as bad as a 2-run homer. So he'll get some more opportunities. And if he gets on base, Olson can make him pay 2 times as much. We got one more Braves segment coming out. This one's very interesting about Alex Anthopoulos and the trade deadline. Alex Anthopoulos earlier this morning on Tuesday talked with Nick Cellini and Chris Domino of 680 The Fan. It's one of the most candid interviews you'll hear from any general manager at any time. But the overarching thing was, we are not selling. Now, he went into different aspects, but just on that, like hearing that, how do you feel about the Atlanta Braves already 7 games under 500, the hole that they're in, being like, hey, not only are we not selling, we're trying to buy right now. He even said, I'm working on a trade right at this moment that he's trying to make.
It's nice. Feels good. It's not shocking. I'm not surprised because all the signs have been there, and you hear these morons talking the Cubs, the Yankees. We have a chance at Chris Sale. First of all, if we were selling, it wouldn't be Chris Sale. I know Anthopoulos talked about that, so none of this is surprising. I mean, I think that you're kidding yourself if you're a Braves fan that you think that there was going to be even a halfway fire sale of expiring contracts to kind of retool for 2026, especially selling guys like Chris Sale who are under contract for 2026. I think it sends a message to the fans to keep Truist alive and have some energy. I think it does the same thing for the clubhouse, for the coaches, the training staff. We always were heralded as this place, this organization that everybody loved to come and show up to work. And it feels like we lost a little bit of that this past year and even into 2024 because it's been so hard. We've just been constantly kicked in the nuts that it's hard to get up and go to work. It would be hard for anybody. So this is a signal not only to everybody in Braves country, from the water boys to the guys writing the checks. We are not done. We are not giving up. Yeah. We're going to fight like hell.
Well, and listen, Alex Anthopoulos talked about that, and he talked about the leadership that everyone wants to talk about, and he specifically went back to that 2021 team, and that's a good example because that's a team that won the World Series, but that was a team that was under 500, that had just lost their best player, that he mentioned on several times. There were leaders all over, but that doesn't mean just because you have leaders, your clubhouse is going to be energized, which is why he looked at Jock, and he called Jock, and he said, I never mentioned one time to Jock, hey, I'm worried about you hitting 10 home runs, or I'm worried about you playing left field or DHing. I want you to come up here and bring your energy, because he had a former relationship with Jock Peterson from out in Los Angeles. And he did the same thing with Stephen Vogt, who was not a player that had a big impact, was not a player that pretty much did anything, but he brought energy. He specifically targeted those guys well before the trade deadline. And that's kind of what he's looking to do here. He recognizes what all of us recognize. This is a flat clubhouse, and you would be flat in that clubhouse too, even if you were hitting 40 bombs, if your team kept losing every single game. These guys want to win, and when they don't win, they're not robots. It does affect them, and it does affect how they come into work every single day. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought the fact you mentioned Chris Sale, he said all players, not just Chris Sale, anybody with club control past this season will not be traded. And he was emphatic. He said, bold, italicize, capitalize it, whatever the hell you want. Nobody with club options past this season will be traded at the trade deadline, which I thought was interesting because we talked about
just Sale.
Yeah, we talked about the Sean Murphy. Ozzie Albies has been struggling. Michael Harris has been struggling. What if there was this blockbuster deal? It was a good deal for the Braves. Very, very straightforward that is not happening. That is not something that's on the table.
And I've been saying it that this is an off-season type of a conversation to have if you are going to have these conversations. It's not a Nico Horner backroom deal that you make as soon as you lay everything out in front of you. If you make a deal as big as something like moving Sean Murphy or Mike Harris or something like that, so that that with absolute certainty you are getting the best possible deal, that you have all the information, all of the cards are on the table. And that's not going to happen in a mid-season trade because everybody is scrambling, with their heads cut off. A bunch of chickens with their head cut off. That's all a GM is during the trade deadline. And you can't, sit back and have your thoughts collected and make a good deal, very rarely at least. So again, not shocked. In fact, I think it's the right move and I'm not saying he won't get traded eventually, talking about Sean Murphy, but in the middle of the season is not the moment, especially with Drake Baldwin basically shutting everybody up who hates Sean Murphy, that he's struggling so bad at the plate right now. It's that was always going to happen. And it just sucks that both of them are struggling right now. Ideally, one of them is hot and the other one's struggling, vice versa.
They need to take turn. They need to make the most. It's like when you have a scramble partner that's just not, hey,
find the fairway.
We played great on this hole and then we both suck. No, one needs, you need to divvy up those streaks. I think that's funny. He did mention the Rafael Devers, and he called out specifically a report from some guy on Twitter that there was a trade in place or, an offer on the table from the Red Sox, Sean Murphy, Marcell Ozuna. And he said that's a bunch of bull crap. And it's lame that, that kind of stuff comes out because there's absolutely zero truth to it. The Braves were aware that Devers was on the trade block for about a month, dating back to last May when there was an incident in Kansas City between the Boston Red Sox. That's when the Red Sox were started calling up teams, but it was nothing more than due diligence. It was simply, hey,
one of the best hitters in baseball is available.
Yeah, it's simply, I'm a GM. I need to know everything that's going on in the league. If there's anyone available, I need to know. So yes, I was happy to be in the know because if I wasn't in the know, I wasn't doing my job. But it never got to the point of sit down, have trade negotiations. Hey, what would it take? Never got to that. And there were certainly no offers on the table.
Yeah. And I think I did something on that Devers piece where I don't remember who reported, but somebody reported that the Braves were among the teams, that inquired about Devers. And at the end of it, after kind of trying to, sift through all the bull crap of being like, more than anything, this was probably Anthopoulos keeping his ear to the street and just collecting information and seeing what's there. Obviously, it was a salary dump, and those are very rare for a guy who is one of the 10 best hitters in baseball, but it was still worth the due diligence because while it wasn't a fit for us, it was a fit for the Giants, and it was a sweet deal for them. I just think people who are going to be like, oh, we never buy. I was like, well, you never know until you ask what the price is, and obviously the price wasn't right for us.
Yeah, I took away from this, though, I was happy to hear this as a Braves fan. Someone that's been very struggling or very hard on Alex Anthopoulos. And I do think he did a pitiful job this offseason, but he owned up to that and he was honest and he accepted the fact that he hasn't done his job well enough. He didn't try to push it on Snit. He talked about Snit doing a great job. He took a lot of responsibility and he said the thing that upset him most, just like all of us fans, is the win-loss record because he's a sports fan himself. He understands what fans expect. He respects the fans and he takes a lot of pride in doing this job. But I think you can expect from all of this that the Atlanta Braves will buy, and they will be trying to buy early. It is very hard to make trades this early, but I don't think it's going to be a situation, especially if they go on a run at any point where they're waiting to the trade deadline. I think if they can get a deal that comes to fruition sooner, they will definitely do it. That's the one thing that I really took away from it.
I don't know how some fans who are still thinking Anthopoulos is carrying Liberty Media's water, it's telling about the money side of things. How you can listen to interviews like this. And this is not a one-off. Anthopoulos is very, very transparent as a GM where a lot of people are not. They give you he'll try and tell you as much as he can. He's not going to obviously go into so much detail that it hurts the Braves, leverage in any negotiation in any form. But when he can be transparent, he's transparent. He would have to be such a sociopath, such a psychopath to sit up there, look people in the eye, and just blatantly lying to them that I wouldn't want that guy near my team hundreds of miles. Get him out of the state of Braves country in general. I don't know how people are still this guy is just straight up lying to us. And it's not just, lunatic Braves fans on Facebook. It's notable people in the media who, hey, you got questions, you got, skepticism. You're the one with the platform. Ask. Don't be what. Ask them. And that's the thing where it's this isn't atypical of Anthopoulos. He is very, very clear and as much as he can be.
He's very honest. He's very candid. There's been moments where it's things he said has happened that didn't happen. You talk about payroll rising, but as I said, I think that was his fault. That wasn't the fact that the payroll wasn't there, as I've said time and time again. And he even said in this thing when he was talking about Chris Sale, he said, I don't give definitive statements because once you go back on one of those, you're a liar. And when you're a liar, you're done. This guy is an honest person. So for the people that
at least he's trying his hardest. He's not actively being deceptive. Maybe there are some things that have developed, but he's not actively being I'm going to deceive my fans.
Well, because he even said, we're not selling. And obviously that's the here and now.
Right.
But he also left the door open to say, hey, if we're 30 games under or something crazy, this thing just gets way out of hand. So if we go on another one of these 1-9 streaks and then we don't pick up anything towards the trade deadline, there will be pieces that will be on the table, namely Marcelo Ozuna and guys like that. I still wouldn't expect him to trade anyone with multiple years of club control because, like he said, that was a definitive statement that he made. And he was pretty damn emphatic about the fact that wouldn't happen. But I thought it was overall one of the best interviews you will see. And if you haven't seen it, it's up on 680 The Fan. It's up on their Twitter that you will hear from a GM. Like if you're a Braves fan and you were looking for a little rah-rah, gave me a little spark, got me a little excited about what's to come.
Maybe for the players too.
Yeah. And that's what making a trade at this time of year sends a message. Hey, I believe in you. Let's get this thing going. That's what I think will happen sooner rather than later. We got a little more to talk about coming up after the break. In another bit of positive Braves news, Jurickson Profar returned to Gwinnett Stripers. He's eligible to return on July 2nd if there are no rainouts. And he had a pretty good day. Couple hits, walk, 5 at-bats. Listen, I'm not going to get too excited about what a professional baseball player can do in Gwinnett. But as you like to say, Alex, at this point, all Braves fans, any good news, we need to say, hey, let's hop on that rocket ship and take it and celebrate it like it's something special. Because there hasn't been a lot of good nuggets that we've had to talk about, and this show's mostly been good nuggets. So change of pace.
I think we should celebrating the small victories is for loser organizations, and we've been in a loser organization for the better part of 6 months now. So let's celebrate the small wins. And while Profar is not got a lot of fans in Braves country, we've said it time and time again. He is going to be dramatically better than what the Braves have had in left field this season. And that's withstanding the fact that maybe 2024 wasn't, the result of cheating with steroids. And it might be, but even if he regresses to his career average, a league average left fielder for the Atlanta Braves right now, it would be like the 5th best batter in our lineup. That's how bad Ozzie, Mike, the left field, Nick Allen has been.
Well, and I also think there's a very, very good chance that the Braves add outfield depth at the trade deadline.
And you want to talk about Ronald Acuña Jr. needing some – you put Jurickson Profar in the 2-hole, and that guy's starting to draw walks. Matt Olson's got 2 guys on now when he's in the 3-hole, and now we're starting to cook. That is the stuff that we're lengthening out the lineup.
You have Jurickson Profar and a good left-handed, or he's a left-handed bat, a good right-handed bat to platoon him with that isn't Eli White. Eli White, I respect the hell. You had some good moments, but it's time for the Verdugo and the White experience to end in totality. So not only do I expect Jurickson Profar to come back and be a big piece to this team, much better than what we've had in left field, but I expect them to add outfield help ahead of the trade deadline, and it's something that they've been linked to already. And you add that depth, just when we had Jock, Soler, Eddie Rosario, and whoever's hot, you're in the lineup, lefty-righty matchup in the lineup. That's something the Braves have really been lacked. Not only have they not had a left fielder at all, they haven't had any. We
had 5 outfielders in 2021.
Yeah. So I expect, just because Jurickson Profar is coming back, I still very, very expect them to go out there and get an outfielder to pair with them and add to this depth, add to this bench, because it is a 26-man roster that is going to win a championship. And right now, the depth of this organization and from the pitching staff to other areas is just as dire as the guys that are starting every single day. When Raheem Morris was hired, he was heralded as this recruiter. We had Jalen Ramsey. Every single person that came out spoke highly of Raheem Morris, and players said that they wanted to play for him. But to this day, it hasn't really translated to anything. It hasn't translated to anything. And it's funny because you mentioned it before we talked about it, but college coaches obviously are much more recruiters than pro coaches. And the only way to really recruit pro players is 2 ways. Money, obviously that's the biggest reason, and winning. And teams like the organizations of the Baltimore Ravens, who haven't won every single season that I've been alive seemingly, can get a guy like Jair Alexander, who's a multiple-time All-Pro, was once one of the best corners, if not the best corners in football, to sign a $6 million deal when he is released by the Packers. The Falcons aren't there yet, which is why I want to make the statement that the biggest recruiter is never going to be a head coach. You know who it's going to be? It's Michael Penix Jr. If that guy can turn this organization around and get us back to the postseason and win 11 games, and we have cap space, the recruiting is going to sell itself. Michael Penix Jr. is the recruiting, and really the quarterback of any organization is the biggest recruiter.
Yeah, winning is a cure-all in any facet of life. You start winning, and you hear it all the time from rich people that making more money once you've made a bunch of money is easy. You just get it. And that's like kind of how like winning is in sports, where like, getting over the hump. I mean, good Lord, how many sub 500 seasons have we had? But then when you get a guy like Matt Ryan into the building, winning just becomes so much easier. It's second nature, it's muscle memory type of a thing, and it snowballs. And it's just like, making money. You have a bunch of money, you put it in the stock market, now you're always making money. That's kind of how like winning is, where the Ravens have just won and won and won, and they've got the guy on Lamar Jackson who's a top 5 quarterback in the league. And you get a guy like Jair Alexander, who we would have had to pay $12-15 million for. You get him for $4, I saw, with $2 million in incentives. So, like, if he struggles with injuries, which he had the last 2 years with Green Bay, Baltimore's protected. So it's an even sweeter deal for the Ravens. It's just, it's one of those things where, like, Falcons fans, we were up here talking about it, and we weren't one of those Falcons fans who's delusional to say, like, Jair Alexander is what he was in 2022, I guess, when he signed that, record-breaking deal. But he was certainly better than whatever our cornerback number 3, or maybe probably, I think, if he's healthy, Mike Hughes. So it's not like we're too good for him. But in that same breath, we have to realize that we aren't those guys.
Yeah.
We aren't those guys. But that's not to say that Michael Penix can't turn us around immediately.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall from the get-go that it was the Ravens,
like Chiefs,
and the
Eagles, Ravens,
Bills. Like that. That's just who those guys go to, and it all starts with obviously the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts maybe isn't the best out of those guys, but
that rest of the
roster is unbelievable. And the Falcons are so far away, which always made me wonder why the hell Calais Campbell and what the hell was shown to Calais Campbell in that meeting with Arthur Smith, where he sat down with Calais Campbell, a Hall of Famer, a man who had been in the league longer than pretty much anyone else outside of the quarterback position, and showed him Desmond Ridder clips, and Calais Campbell came away sold.
That wasn't. He maybe gave him some stock in FedEx or something.
All I'll say,
we'll give you $7 million, but we'll give you $100 million.
All I'll say is NFL players and players across sports love to talk about how you didn't play the game. You don't know the game. If Calais Campbell sat there and saw Desmond Ridder and was convinced to sign with the Atlanta Falcons, that is further proof that just because you played the game does not make you an expert of the game. We got one more segment coming up after the break. The Atlanta Falcons, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, are expecting a lot from this rookie class. I mean, we're talking about Jalen Walker. We're hoping he's the best player across the defensive line. We're talking about James Pierce. We hope he's 1B. We're talking about Xavier Watts. We hope he's a day one starter next to Jesse Bates. And we're even talking about Billy Bowman Jr., a 4th-round pick, potentially being the starting nickel after playing safety last year. So that is a huge amount. We all expect this defense to be better, and we are excited to see these players. But we are also relying on a ton of inexperience at a level on the defensive side of the ball where inexperiences can get pointed out. I mean, pinpointed out. I mean, just look at D. Alford last year. It was, hey, where's D. Alford? Where's 20? All right, let's go right at him every single play. And that's what they'll do. That's what the good teams, that's what the good quarterbacks will do. They will find that wink link, and they will continue to exploit it. It's like a Madden game where you can't stop that one play. That's what they do.
Yeah,
it's realistic.
It's Raheem Morris has said it. Plenty of reports that they're expecting these guys to fill significant roles, and many of them day one starters. I mean, you're playing a dangerous game because let's just look at the history. 1st round pass rushers, 6 sacks is a good year.
What did Jairus first have last year? 5.5.
Like 7.5. And then Micah Parsons, those are the two like anomalies where those two guys were just game wreckers from day one. And while I'm not saying Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. can't be those guys, but expectations of that happening is dangerous. It's a dangerous gamble. Hoping is not a strategy. I say it all the time. And like those two guys combining for 10 sacks, 12 sacks would be like a good year. And that's not, completely shifting the Falcons defense. And even more than that, it's like, okay, they're playing the hardest position other than quarterback and maybe like left tackle to make the transition from college to pro and be good. And while, safety is easier and nickelback is probably easier than edge rusher, those are day 2 and then the cornerback and Billy Bowman, and that's a day 3 guy. And while we still feel like we got steals in those guys and the Falcons feel like they were undervalued, they should have been, first round picks in Watts' case and Bowman as a day 2 pick. The simple fact of the matter is they weren't. They weren't.
Yeah.
And asking a day 3 cornerback, I don't care that if he was a 4th round cornerback. You know who also was a 4th round cornerback? Clark Phillips, Darren Hall. Where are those? Like, I'm not saying he can't be a contributor, but like, we got a lot of pieces. We got a lot of pieces that we're relying on that are kind of like iffy.
There was a podcast, I think it was Bustin' with the Boys. I can't remember if it was Latham or Booker. It was one of the left tackles from Alabama that came in the year after Will Anderson. Latham. So Latham was talking about their matchup because I believe they're in the same division where Will Anderson.
AFC South, yeah.
Where Will Anderson, they had practiced together, and he's like, dude, I went up against Will Anderson all the time in practice and held my own. I ain't worried about Will Anderson because the coaches were like, Will Anderson, you got to know where he is, yada, yada. And this is Will Anderson's second year, and this is his rookie year. And he said he went up with Will Anderson his second year. So it's just 1 full year in the league. And the stats show this as well. And was like, oh, damn, that boy's a problem. Like that was not the same guy that I played in college. And that just shows you what 1 year in the league. So if this was the second year and we saw that production, that makes a lot of sense to expect them to take that leap to Pro Bowl level or something like that. But right now, you're 100% right. Not only is it unfair to put 6-7 sack expectations, it's fair to wonder if there even be above average players in year 1.
Yeah, and thankfully in some areas we have veterans they can rely on. We have good coaching in some areas. Jesse Bates, arguably the best safety, going to be great for Xavier Watts. Leonard Floyd, while he might not be spectacular and sexy, the guy's a 10-year veteran for a reason. Like, to stick around in this league for that long, you're doing something right. And Jalen Walker has already shown an aptitude of being able to soak up knowledge and knowledge for the game that you are encouraged. But expecting these guys to be Micah Parsons or, Jesse Bates immediately is dangerous. You're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah. And the Raheem Morris coach speak
is not helping. It's not helping the Falcons fans
because we get juiced up and we're like, oh, you love James Pearson's guy. Oh, he's going to come here and get 20 sacks. And it's like, no, I was just saying he's going to be a good football player. He's going to contribute or something like that. So Raheem Morris, but that's just who Raheem Morris is. And that's who Terry Fontenot is. So you're never going to change who those people are and how they talk to the media. But you're right. Expectations to a degree should be tempered. Not saying don't be excited, but expect to be Pro Bowlers might be a little ridiculous. That wraps up our show. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with you tomorrow.